It's often said, if you reinvented British racing with a blank sheet of paper, Epsom would be the last place you'd stage one of the most important races in the world. It's too difficult, too tricksy. Horses get het up, unbalanced in mind and body, and they let themselves down. There are much fairer ways to find the best racehorse. But that's nonsense. This is exactly the place, and here's why. The test begins when the horses leave the insulated calm of the racecourse stables and are led towards what on Derby Day will be a cauldron of sounds. They pass the Rubbing House pub and go behind the Queen's stand to the parade ring, which will be packed full of people connected with each runner and surrounded by race fans, each trying to get a sight of the horses. The horses are saddled in there. Although Aidan O'Brien prefers to bring his horses to the open air, it can get quite hot and stuffy in there on a summer's day. On Derby Day, even at this very early stage, you might see some horses starting to lose it. Once the jockeys are on board, it's back down the walkway to parade in front of the stands. It's a requirement of Group 1 races to parade, and there's a fine if you break it. Some do, reckoning the lure of the prize is many times that of the penalty. But that's ultimately self-defeating, because mental soundness is something that should be perpetuated in the breed. Derby Day is an extreme test of that. After the parade, the horses canter to the start in the reverse direction of the race. Now, on the day itself, this straight will be like a tunnel of noise. There'll be picnics, parties, fun fairs, music. One of the most important races in the world is, in essence, conducted through the middle of a circus. It's like running the Olympic 100 metres at the Notting Hill Carnival. Negotiate this for the relative calm of the start, and there's only the race itself to worry about. The stalls open and straight away there's a problem. The exertion of a hill, complicated by the track bearing at first to the right and then left. The track rises about 140 feet on uneven and undulating terrain before sweeping sharply 40 feet downhill round a tight left-handed bend called Tattenham Corner. The straight continues to drop 60 feet until the ground rises again in the final 100-yard climb to the winning post. Throw in this camber. The inside part of the track against the inside rail is much lower than the stand side of the track against the stand side rail over there. You'll see tired horses, unable to resist, tottering towards the inside rail as their exertions and the ground falling away beneath them robs them of their balance. It's a test of good conformation and athleticism. All these challenges interrupt a runner's rhythm and make Epsom the stiffest test of stamina around, as shown by these standard times for a mile and a half. Put simply, these are the times a good horse takes to cover the equivalent of the Derby trip at these top racecourses. The Curragh, home of the Irish Derby, is often still mistakenly thought of as a stiffer test than Epsom. The clock says that's 3.5 seconds untrue. Now 7 seconds equates to more than 30 lengths. That means, on times, a mile and a half race at Newmarket would have finished about here. But at Epsom, after the same amount of time had elapsed, there'd be more than half a furlong left to run. It's a high-class endurance test, the Derby. It's a test of courage, actually. So the horse who keeps his head and his balance, who is fast enough to get to the front and strong enough to stay there, who retains his will and his ability to triumph after all of those experiences, will be the Derby winner, and his genes will fully deserve to be perpetuated.
Well, Lydia and I are now joined by Steve Mellish, but first of all, Lydia, having been out onto the course, you can give us a little insight onto what makes it so special.
It's a unique course. I think it's a fantastic course, and the thing is that the things that the detractors level at the course and the Derby, I think, are its strengths. I feel very strongly about that, actually. I think the Derby and the test that a horse has to come through are important for a great race, and important, more importantly, in the wider sense, for the breed.
And Steve, you've seen many a Derby in your time, of course. You're the oldest on the team. Just tell us about the quality of horse that you've seen win the race. Is it always the best?
Well, in the black and white days, Rich, they were. I think it's a difficult test. There's no question that Epsom is a difficult track, but to be the best at anything, you should have to pass difficult tests in any walk of life. To say something's difficult doesn't mean it's unfair. I think they're two completely different things. And I say a quick look at the roll of honour of Derby winners for 200 and odd years shows you that the best horse invariably wins.
One thing I always think is important at Epsom is the jockey. We've seen Lester Piggott excel. He was, of course, the greatest of them all. Kieran Fallon, he's another jockey who's excelled at the Derby. And it's very important that you have a jockey that can ride this course well, because a jockey who doesn't know it very well can get you into trouble.
He gets ruthlessly exposed, the jockey who doesn't ride it well. I think it's a right place, right time merchants for this track. I'd throw Johnny Murtagh into that mix as well.
It's the same argument, isn't it? I mean, again, the best jockeys should have to pass the Supreme Test. I mean, that's the whole point. And yeah, you're right. I grew up with Lester Piggott, and he is the best. He has been the best round here. I mean, with all due respect to the other people you mentioned, he was fantastic round here. You'd see him every time he ran round, he'd be in the same position every time, and, you know, he made light of a difficult test. That's because he was the best.
Well, young Joseph O'Brien has only just turned 19. It will be a big test for him.